Hello everyone, I'm Captain Logan and welcome once again to your friendly neighborhood comic book vault. Today we're going to take a look at the Spectacular Spider-Man countdown. This is the second trade from Spectacular Spider-Man in 2004, and this collects issues number 6 through 10. This was sent to me a couple months ago by OAK Crusader O. Thanks again to you. This was written by Paul Jenkins, pencils by Humberto Ramos, who of course is still drawing quite a bit of Spider-Man right now for Dan Slott. And this is a Doc Ock story where Dr. Octopus kidnaps the Prime Minister for the then new state of Palestine. And there's these peace talks, these Middle East peace talks going on in the middle of New York City, and Dr. Octopus decides that he's going to kidnap the Prime Minister to mess up the peace talks and try to get ransom money, and the whole scheme is basically to try to force Spider-Man to try to take off his mask. And his whole motivation is he's been beaten 50 times or more, Dr. Octopus says, by Spider-Man, and he feels like he is smarter and stronger and wittier and overall better than Spider-Man, and he doesn't like that the general perception of him by just the general populace is that Spider-Man is better than he is because he always seems to win. And it seems to be kind of commenting a little bit on the age-old comic book idea that the good guys always have to win because they're the good guys. And Doc Ock just can't figure it out. There's even this idea brought up by Peter Parker at one point, which I think is somewhat of a kind of a cheesy idea, really, which is there's these three big things that you need to win, and one of them is you've got to be compassionate. You're not going to win a big giant battle unless you're compassionate. I'm not real sure how that fits in. I think it seems like being smarter and stronger is probably more important than being compassionate. But I guess the idea is that the universe will be more on your side if you're a good person, and I guess fate is supposed to play into it a little bit. So anyway, when you start saying stuff like that in a comic book, it kind of takes away some of the danger, because it's hard to imagine that a good guy would ever lose, because as long as they have compassion and the other guy doesn't, they're always going to win. It seems like the way it really ought to be is, sure, the good guy usually wins because it's a comic book world, but we should every time be impressed with his ingenuity. Part of the problem with this book is that I don't feel real impressed with Spider-Man's ingenuity and how he finally wins at the end. But we'll get there. This isn't a horribly terrible book. I certainly liked this a whole lot better than I liked the recent Ends of the Earth story that Dan Slott did with Doc Ock, because at least here I understand his motivations better and I get more what he's after. This was this period starting actually here apparently, where Doc Ock has this big black trench coat that has this collar that goes all the way up over his face, and he's supposed to look more menacing that way, and that's the look he's going for now. And it seems like he's just all about making a really big deal out of how much better he is than Spider-Man. And I'll tell you, I really like the voice that Jenkins has for Doc Ock in this. He's calm. He sounds calm and calculating, except for when he just gets really angry and vindictive. But it's a good voice for Doc Ock. This seems to set up a number of things that happen in the Marvel Universe just after this, and I wanted to touch on that for a minute. Mary Jane seems to, and I haven't read, I didn't read the arc before this, of course, because I just had this trade, and so I'm not sure exactly what caused her to leave, but she actually left Peter Parker for a while, and here is just coming back, and it's unclear even. I'm assuming they're still married. They don't talk about that, but of course they're still together, but they've had a bit of a rocky patch, and it seems to have a lot to do with Peter Parker being Spider-Man, and it's not talked about much. It seems like you're kind of expected to have read that already, and you already know it. Of course, like I said, I just haven't. But it seems like the idea is already being planted that Marvel and of course, a very particular major name at Marvel to specifically is not real keen on this relationship between Peter Parker and Mary Jane, and the fact that they're still together and have been married and have been together for so long. And this really does seem to be leading up already to the idea of One More Day, with just, and I know that happens quite a bit later, but just with this idea that we can't keep them together. They've got to stay rocky. They can't get along. And you know, they get along better in this because they haven't been together in a while. And she seems way more understanding than I suppose she was before she left, because every time Peter Parker has to run off and be Spider-Man, he's like really worried about it. He's like, "Are you sure this is okay? Do you mind if I?" And she's like, "No, go save the world. You're supposed to do that." And so I'd like to read what happened before this and find out what she was acting like, and if this book is having her just suddenly be more understanding because that's what it wants her to do now, and whether or not it actually is a fluid idea that fits in this well. So I don't know. I do feel like there's already some setup going on for One More Day, and this seems to, and I don't know if this is the first place where the idea is mentioned in Marvel, but this seems to also be setting up Civil War a little bit, because when Doc Ock sets up this whole scheme where Peter Parker must take his mask off by noon the next day, or he's going to kill the Palestinian Prime Minister, there's this, we see this news report where, well, it's not a report, but we see this on this news program with Mr. Fantastic and a number of other people who are experts in political and superhero arenas, all sitting together and trying to decide if we need something like a Superhero Registration Act, which later on Civil War, of course, deals with. And so I wonder if this was the first place that idea was brought up, and if it was trying to plant that seed, or if it was Paul Jenkins' idea. Do we have Paul Jenkins to thank for Civil War? I don't know. And if you know if this was an idea that was already being planted in Marvel before this, please leave a comment, because I just don't know. I'm going back now with some of these books that I'm picking up and that folks are sending to me, and getting a little bit more of a picture of early to mid-2000s Marvel when I was just kind of completely out of it. And, you know, I stopped collecting Spider-Man for a long time and really don't have much of Spider-Man between the years of, like, 2000 and, like, 2009, 2010. I mean, I skipped almost a decade of Spider-Man, and so now I'm going back, reading pieces of it, and it's kind of strange to review because I don't have a lot of the context around it, so I'm pretty much just looking at this story. But knowing stuff that happened later, I just find it kind of interesting that idea is in there. So anyway, where I get off saying that Spider-Man doesn't have the most incredible ingenuity is that the problem is kind of solved without him, but the book still pretends like he's really clever for what he does, the part he does play in this, where the Israelis have have wiretapped the Palestinian Prime Minister, and they actually know where he's being held and that he's still alive. Because there's this big question: well, should we even talk about complying with his demands and with letting Spider-Man comply with his demands, because maybe he's even killed the Prime Minister already? And then the Israeli Prime Minister, I'm not sure actually if he's the Prime Minister or if he's, no, he's not, I'm sorry, he's like a major, like, Secret Service guy for the Israelis, shows up and tells Spider-Man that they know where he is, and so that problem's already solved for him. And basically, when you get to the part where Spider-Man is supposed to take off his mask, and once again, I'm spoiling things on this. I always like to say this in case you haven't watched The Vault before, but I like to do these just to give you an idea of what happens in this book if you don't get a chance to read it yourself. So if you don't want to know how this ends, if you don't want it spoiled for you, of course, quit watching the video. But anyway, so Spider-Man takes off his mask, and then he's got another mask behind him, and the book plays it up as if that's this really surprisingly impressive idea, and I found myself wondering the whole time if that's how he was going to do it. And not only does it play it up like it's a big giant deal just in how clever he's supposed to be for having come up with it, and Doc Ock's reaction is ridiculous when he says, "What have you done?" And that actually ends an issue. If you read this in issues, that ends an issue, and you gotta wait to the next issue to find out he's just wearing another mask underneath that. Why Doc Ock doesn't try to pull that mask off then, I don't know. I don't even know why he doesn't try to pull Spider-Man's mask off of him at the beginning of the book when he says, "I want you to take your mask off." He actually gives Peter Parker the the chance to, you know, before the world, pull his mask off. And he doesn't seem to make a big deal either out of how, like, he has to do it willingly. It doesn't seem like that's the point. His whole point is, he claims, is just to show the world that Spider-Man underneath is just a man, and that he's not as cool and as impressive as everybody else, versus Doc Ock, who is stronger and smarter and everything, like I said. Well, Peter Parker makes a really big deal out of how much stronger Doc Ock is than he is. He agrees with that, and Doc Ock has added a bunch of improvements to his his arms. Most notably, that now they all have individual AI, kind of like they do in Spider-Man 2. And I kind of wondered if this was somehow inspired by that movie or not, although they came out the same year, so who knows. But I thought that was kind of interesting. But anyway, I don't know, why doesn't Doc Ock just bring a video camera with him, pull Spider-Man's mask off, videotape that, because I think he'd be strong enough to do it. Doc Ock managed it in Spider-Man 2, so I don't know, I just sort of wondered why he didn't just, you know, hit him in the head, yank his mask off, videotape that happening, and then, you know, send it to the public. But anyway, the book makes a big deal out of how impressive he is for coming up with that, and how impressive he is with coming up with giving some random kid who wants to be a superhero sidekick a video camera, and this kid wants to call himself the Kiwi Kid, and he dresses up, which makes Mary Jane laugh hysterically, which I thought was really strange and silly, because I don't know why that's supposed to be that funny. He dresses up in this really ridiculous costume, and then Spider-Man gives him the mission to go to where the Israelis have told him that the Prime Minister is being held captive, and videotape that so that in the middle of Times Square, Spider-Man can send a feed there and then show everybody where Doc Ock is hiding this guy, and that he's still alive and everything. So yeah, it's really pretty much just the Israelis, who, by the way, I kind of like this idea that you know, the reason that they do this is because they don't actually really want to go to war. They're trying to, even though you know, they're doing a lot of tactics to spy on the Palestinians and everything, they still, you know, would prefer not to go to war, and so I kind of like that it's them who saves them. It's a little heavy-handed just because it's still, you know, 3 years after September 11th. It seems like comics at this point all felt that, or not all, but a lot of them felt the need to really hit home, you know, all these terrorist plots and put a lot of real-world stuff in their comic books. I'm not a big fan of that. This being a period, and in a lot of ways we're still kind of in it, this being a period of uncertainty and of a lot of really scary things happening both abroad and domestically, it seems to me like the direction more comics ought to have gone was escapism, to give kids and adults alike something to help them get away from the craziness and the scariness of the world that they're in, rather than constantly reminding them of it. That's just my 2 cents, but I didn't really care for that all that much myself. However, like I said, I do like that it's the Israelis that solve the problem, except that, you know, it should have been Spider-Man, but that's at least something. And I also like that the Palestinian Prime Minister really has a personality and is constantly being told by Doc Ock to stop talking, and he's constantly taunting Doc Ock, and that's kind of fun. And then at the end of this, Spider-Man and Doc Ock, of course, get in this giant fight, and then Doc Ock, kind of like in Ends of the Earth, now that his plan hasn't worked, starts throwing out just other random plans. Again, they make more sense than the ones that he did in Ends of the Earth, but it's kind of similar how close these are in their endings, because he starts going, well, you know, if I can't get what I wanted from this big plan I had, then I'm going to kill someone every year and let everyone know that it's your fault. And he grabs this person and actually kills him right in front of Spider-Man. And again, it's kind of playing with this classic idea that a lot of superhero comics play with, which is, do superheroes help more than they harm? And if Doc Ock's if the whole reason Doc Ock is doing this is just to get back at Spider-Man, if Spider-Man didn't exist, then none of this would be going on. And so maybe it is at least vaguely, you know, loosely Peter Parker's fault. And so, it's playing with that, and it is kind of a shocking scene when he gets a human shield, and then Doc Ock, and then kills him right in front of Spider-Man. And I like what happens right after that, where Spider-Man's like, I'm not going to let this keep going on, and it gets really serious and tense for a minute, and Spider-Man grabs Doc Ock, and he just hits him and hits him and hits him in the face, and he says, I want you to beg, basically, is what he does, and Doc Ock finally begs for his life, and I think that moment is supposed to show that Spider-Man really is morally and ethically better than Dr. Octopus, and once again, that's the reason that he wins. I kind of liked that ending better than I liked a lot of the rest of the book, to be perfectly honest with you. Art-wise, the book is well, it's Ramos, so it's kind of cartoony. There are some really nice action shots, but I've just never been a really big fan of the way that Ramos draws faces. Is really my thing. I think he's a fabulous artist. I just don't love his character designs. I like what he's doing now a little bit more than I like this. I think that his style has kind of evolved a bit over the years, and it's been several years since this, and but there's definitely some variety now that I'm going back and looking at this to his artwork. It's not just a one-trick pony. I mean, he's got some light scenes and some really heavy scenes, and again, I just don't love his character designs. That's my only thing. But anyway, so all in all, not the greatest Spider-Man story ever, not the greatest Doc Ock story ever. Better than Ends of the Earth. Unfortunately, sets up some things in Marvel that I don't like that much later on. And but not a horrible read. I enjoyed a lot of things about it. So anyway, thanks as always for watching the Comic Book Vault. If you got anything you'd like to see me review on the Vault, you can always donate things to our P.O. Box, or you can loan me things. I'll be happy to send you things back if you'd like to just let me see something. You can always send that to our P.O. Box. It's Geekvolution, P.O. Box 14183, Lenexa, Kansas 66285. Got a couple of big series coming up pretty soon. I'm going to do some stuff on Deadpool pretty quick, and I'm also planning a little bit later on doing a series on Guardians of the Galaxy, so look forward to that. I'm Captain Logan, and happy reading.